The Velvorax fleet hung in space, casting an ominous shadow over Earth. Their massive warships, each one equipped with powerful weapons, silently awaited the command to strike. Admiral Xandor stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic map of Earth. He could almost hear the hum of the ship's engines, ready to tear through space at unimaginable speeds. "It's almost time," Xandor said quietly to himself. He was confident. He had been through many battles, and the thought of an underdeveloped planet like Earth posing any real challenge was laughable. The humans had no chance. As the countdown for their strike began, the fleet's communication systems suddenly flickered. It was a minor glitch, nothing that would change the outcome of the battle. But to Xandor, it was a sign that something was off. His confidence wavered for just a moment, though he quickly pushed the thought aside. "Prepare for invasion. Begin Phase 1, he ordered, his voice cold and commanding. Back on Earth, the air was thick with tension, but the world had no idea that the fate of their home was already hanging by a thread. People went about their lives unaware of the immense danger that loomed just beyond their skies. Governments around the globe had scrambled into action, but their efforts were scattered and far from coordinated. Earth's military was nowhere near ready to face an enemy as formidable as the Velvorax. But there was a secret humanity held close, one that not even the world's leaders were fully aware of. Deep underground in a hidden facility, a group of scientists, military leaders, and engineers had been preparing for a day like this. They had studied alien technology for years, adapting it to Earth's needs and, most importantly, preparing to defend against any threat from beyond the stars. Dr. Sophia Hayes, the brilliant scientist who had been at the forefront of this secretive operation, stood in front of a giant holographic map of Earth's defenses. Beside her was General Marcus Kane, who had led countless military campaigns, but this would be his most important one. They had a plan, but it was not without risks. "We have to act quickly," Dr. Hayes said, her voice tense. "The EMP satellites are ready, but we need to make sure they're launched at the right moment. If we strike too early, they'll be able to adapt. We can't afford to give them any warning." General Kane nodded, his face grim. "I know. We've trained for this moment for years, but the Velvorax won't make it easy. Their fleet is massive, and we can't afford a single mistake." The world's leaders were watching, waiting for any sign that humanity could stand against the Velvorax. Earth had never faced an enemy like this before. Every civilization the Velvorax had destroyed had been far more advanced than Earth, and yet here humanity was, daring to fight back. It was a gamble, a long shot. But for the first time in history, Earth was ready to show what it could do. Above the atmosphere, the Velvorax fleet began its approach, and Earth's defenses were activated. A series of satellites, hidden away in the depths of space, powered up. These EMP satellites had the ability to disable electronic systems across a vast area, and they were the one thing the Velvorax hadn't expected. As the satellites came online, a warning signal blared across the Velvorax flagship. Xandor's face turned pale as his fleet systems began to malfunction. "What is this?" Xandor muttered, slamming his fist onto the console. "Who dares to interfere with us?" The crew worked frantically to regain control, but it was too late. The EMP pulse hit, and in an instant, the Velvorax fleet's advanced communication systems, weaponry, and shields went dark. Ships that had been invulnerable just moments ago were now sitting ducks, their massive forms floating aimlessly in space. Xandor gritted his teeth in fury. "This can't be happening. We are the Velvorax Empire. No one has ever stopped us before." But the Velvorax were not prepared for what happened next. Earth's fleet, which had been hiding in the shadows, prepared for this very moment. While the EMP disabled the alien ships, it was the humans' ingenuity that took the next step. Human ships, many of which had been converted from commercial vessels, armed with alien tech and powered by human innovation, launched from Earth's atmosphere. They were not as fast or as powerful as the Velvorax ships, but they had something that the invaders did not, the element of surprise. General Kane, aboard one of Earth's lead ships, issued the order to attack. "Lock onto their weapon systems. Let's show them what we can do." With a series of precision strikes, human forces disabled the first wave of Velvorax ships. The aliens, still scrambling to regain control, were now under attack from all sides. The humans had hit them when they were at their weakest, and the invaders were beginning to panic. Back on Earth, people began to feel the shift. The skies above major cities grew silent. The usual hum of satellite communications and military aircraft replaced by a strange stillness. At first, no one knew what was happening. The news stations were flooded with reports of strange anomalies in the sky, but nothing could prepare the public for what was unfolding above them. In secret command centers around the world, military leaders, including Dr. Hayes and General Kane, watched the situation unfold with cautious optimism. The Velvorax were strong, but they had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated humanity. Dr. Hayes stood in front of a bank of monitors, her eyes scanning the data coming in. "It's working," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're losing control of their ships. The EMP is keeping them disabled," General Kane's voice crackled through the comms. "We need to keep the pressure on. If we give them a chance to recover, they'll regroup and retaliate. We have one shot at this." Earth's forces pushed forward, launching a relentless assault on the Velvorax ships. The humans' tactic was simple: overwhelm them before they could react. Their ships were not as fast, but they were well coordinated, and they had studied the weaknesses in the Velvorax fleet's design. Every strike was precise, every move calculated. The Velvorax fleet, once proud and confident, was now in chaos. What was supposed to be a quick victory had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. The humans were proving to be a far more formidable foe than they had ever imagined. On the Velvorax flagship, Xandor's temper flared as he watched the unfolding disaster. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles white with anger. How is this possible? How are they doing this? His officers could only offer helpless answers. We are unable to restore full control, Admiral. The EMP is too powerful. We cannot fix the damage in time." Xandor's mind raced. He had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. The fleet was losing ship after ship. He needed a solution, and fast. "They're adapting too quickly," he said to himself as the lights on his flagship flickered. "But they won't win this." "We still have one last weapon." Xandor's eyes narrowed. He wasn't ready to give up just yet. He was a master strategist, and he knew that the only thing standing between him and victory was time. Time to recover and regroup. As the battle in space raged on, the people of Earth were unaware of the full scale of the conflict above them. But a quiet sense of pride began to grow in their hearts. They had always thought of themselves as small, weak, and insignificant compared to the other species of the universe. But now, humanity had proven that they were capable of so much more. They had fought back against an unbeatable enemy, and in doing so, they had taken the first step in showing the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. The Velvorax had come to Earth thinking it would be an easy conquest. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive, and they would soon learn the price of that mistake. The storm was just beginning, and the humans weren't going to stop until they had secured their future. This was only the beginning of Earth's battle against the Velvorax. But one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. The battle was far from over. Though Earth's forces had made a surprising breakthrough, the Velvorax Empire was not going to give up easily. As Earth's ships continued to press the attack, the Velvorax regrouped, their commanders scrambling to regain control over their malfunctioning fleet. Their mighty ships were struggling to function as they had before. The EMP that had disabled their weapons and shields was still in effect. But the Velvorax were not about to let their empire crumble. Admiral Xandor stood in the control room of his flagship, his eyes scanning the holographic display. His once pristine ship was now damaged, and the war machines under his command were disarrayed. The battle wasn't going according to plan. His fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, was faltering. But Xandor's resolve had not wavered. "We will regain control," Xandor growled, his voice low but filled with determination. "No one has ever stood against us for long. The humans will fall. We just need time." His officers worked tirelessly to get the fleet systems back online, but it was slow going. The Velvorax were formidable warriors, but they had never faced an enemy like this before. Humans, with their quick thinking and relentless determination, were proving to be far more than the Velverax had anticipated. Meanwhile, Earth's forces were not waiting idly. General Marcus Kane, leading the charge against the Velverax, watched from the bridge of his own ship as their coordinated attacks continued. The damage to the Velverax fleet was real, but the war was far from won. General Kane knew they had to strike while the enemy was still weakened. He knew that once the Velverax regained control of their fleet, they would be even more dangerous. "Keep the pressure on," General Kane barked into the comms. "We can't afford to let them regroup. If they manage to repair their ships, this battle will turn against us. Strike now. Every ship, every weapon. Make sure we hit them hard." The human forces did not hesitate. Hundreds of Earth's warships, though fewer in number than the Velverax fleet, moved in for the kill. These ships, built with a combination of alien technology and Earth's own innovations, were designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses of the Velverax ships. The first wave of strikes had been a surprise, but now Earth's forces pressed forward with full force. Admiral Xandor's grip tightened on the console. His fleet was struggling, but he would not let the humans win. "Prepare the weapons systems. We may be at a disadvantage now, but we still have one last card to play." On Earth, the world watched as the battle unfolded above them. From major cities to rural towns, everyone knew something was happening, but few understood the full scale of the war. News stations broadcasted updates showing the terrifying images of the Velverax fleet hovering above Earth. People held their breath, watching the skies. It was a strange combination of fear and hope. The world was united in a way it had never been before. But the enemy above was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Dr. Sophia Hayes stood in front of a row of screens, watching the battle unfold. Her mind raced as she processed the data coming in from Earth's military network. The EMP satellites had done their job, but the Velverax were beginning to recover. If they could fix their systems, they would be able to unleash their full power. And the humans would be at a severe disadvantage. "General Kane, we've been keeping them down, but I don't know how much longer we can hold them off," Dr. Hayes said, her voice tight with concern. "We need to take the fight to them. We've got to keep them on the defensive." "This is the only chance we have," General Kane responded, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The human forces were pushing forward with everything they had. However, as the battle raged on, Earth's forces began to notice something strange. The Velverax were not simply retreating, they were regrouping, preparing for something bigger. "They're up to something," Kane said, his voice filled with suspicion. "We've intercepted some of their communications," Dr. Hayes replied, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "They're activating a secondary weapon. It's unlike anything we've seen before." "What kind of weapon?" General Kane demanded. "It's still unclear," Dr. Hayes said, her brow furrowed. "But it could be devastating. The unknown weapon was now Earth's biggest concern." As the battle continued, Earth's military forces tightened their formation, readying for whatever the Velverax had planned. General Kane couldn't afford to take chances. "We need to stop them before they deploy that weapon," Kane said. "All ships, redirect to the flagship. We'll take the fight directly to them." In the midst of the chaos, Admiral Xandor's plan began to unfold. He had kept his ace up his sleeve for this very moment. The Velverax had spent decades perfecting a secret weapon that could obliterate entire cities with a single blast. This was their final chance to break the humans and bring the battle to a close. A new countdown began, and Xandor felt a renewed sense of purpose. He stood tall on the bridge of his flagship as the weapon powered up. "Activate the Annihilator beam," he ordered, his voice filled with icy confidence. "This will end the fight." The Annihilator beam was the Velverax's most powerful weapon, capable of leveling entire cities with a single shot. Xandor knew that once they unleashed it, Earth would be forced to surrender. The beam was locked and aimed directly at one of Earth's largest cities, New York. Back on Earth, General Kane and Dr. Hayes realized what was happening. The final weapon had been activated, and it was aimed at New York. There was no time to waste. "Prepare to move in," Kane barked. "We need to disable that weapon now, or millions of lives will be lost." The humans had one shot. It was risky, but it was their only chance to stop the Velvorax from using their ultimate weapon. Earth's forces launched into a full assault, heading straight for the Velvorax flagship. The mission was simple: reach the flagship, infiltrate, and disable the Annihilator beam before it could be used. The human ships surged through the stars, weaving and dodging incoming fire from the disabled Velvorax fleet. Earth's forces were determined to succeed, knowing that the future of their planet depended on this single moment. As they neared the flagship, the tension in the air was palpable. Inside the flagship, Xandor's eyes glowed with intensity. He was close, so close to victory. The Annihilator beam would be fired any second now. But then, something unexpected happened. A small fleet of human ships broke through the Velvorax defense, cutting a path straight toward the flagship. With precision and skill, they moved in. On board the leading ship, General Kane was ready for the final strike. "We have to board the flagship," Kane said to his crew. "Once we're inside, we disable the weapon." "Let's move quickly!" The humans stormed the flagship, fighting through wave after wave of Velvorax soldiers. They fought fiercely, using both human and alien technology to their advantage. General Kane led the charge, determined to stop the weapon at all costs. As the humans pushed forward, Dr. Hayes was working from a remote location, hacking into the flagship's systems. She was close to disabling the Annihilator beam when an alarm blared through the flagship's corridors. "General, we've got one shot," Dr. Hayes said over the comms. "I've unlocked the controls. Disable the main power core now." Kane nodded and turned to his team. "Let's end this." In a final desperate push, the human forces breached the central control room of the Velvorax flagship. There, Kane and his team found the Annihilator beam's power core, a massive energy generator that powered the weapon. With one final strike, the humans disabled the power source, rendering the weapon useless. As the power in the flagship flickered and died, Xandor realized what had just happened. His most powerful weapon had been destroyed, and with it, his hopes of defeating humanity. The Velvorax fleet, now leaderless and defenseless, was left vulnerable to Earth's attacks. The tides had turned. Earth's forces were now in control, and the Velvorax would have to face the consequences of underestimating humanity. General Kane stood in front of the massive view screen aboard his ship, watching the Velvorax fleet in chaos. It wasn't over yet, but Earth had won the first battle. The humans had proven that they could rise to any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. "Earth may be small, but we are not weak," General Kane said to his crew, a smile on his face. "And we will never give up." This was only the beginning of the war for Earth, but one thing was clear. Humanity would fight with everything it had, and it would not go down without a fight. The battle in space raged on, but on Earth, something more powerful was beginning to unfold, a quiet, unshakable resolve that stretched across every continent. Humanity had been pushed to the edge, and now, with the Velvorax fleet in disarray, Earth's forces were preparing to deliver a final blow. The war was far from over, but one thing had become crystal clear. The Velvorax had underestimated humanity, and they would now pay the price for that mistake. In the command center beneath the mountains of the Rockies, General Marcus Kane stood with a team of military strategists, watching the live feed from space. The Velvorax fleet had been thrown into chaos. Their once unbeatable warships were now crippled, and their prized weapon, the Annihilator beam, was gone. The tide had turned, but Kane knew the Velvorax would not give up easily. "We've only won a battle, not the war," Kane said, his voice calm but firm. "The Velvorax will regroup, and when they do, they'll come back harder. We can't let our guard down." Dr. Sophia Hayes, standing by his side, nodded in agreement. "Exactly. The Velvorax are angry. Their pride has been wounded. They will retaliate. But now we've shown them we're not helpless. We can win this. We just need to be ready for whatever comes next." The images from space showed the scattered remains of the Velvorax fleet. Some ships were floating lifelessly in space, while others had attempted to retreat, but Earth's forces had them cornered. Kane's fleet had made its mark, but the Velvorax still had a final weapon, a massive fortress on a hidden moon in the outer reaches of their empire. This fortress was said to contain the last of their military power. If they could harness it, Earth would be in grave danger. Kane's eyes were fixed on the tactical map. We need to hit their stronghold before they can recover. We can't let them regroup. The Velvorax might be down, but they're not out. And we need to stop them now! The news across the globe spread fast. People who had once felt helpless and small under the shadow of the invading fleet now saw a glimmer of hope. Soldiers, civilians, and scientists, people from all walks of life, began to rally together. Their unity was undeniable. The world had been fractured for years by differences, but now humanity stood as one. This was no longer just a war for survival. It was a war for Earth's future. The leaders of the world's nations, once divided over resources and power, now sat in a room that echoed with purpose. Their unity was a force in itself, a symbol of the strength that had carried humanity through generations of hardship. "We've seen what we're capable of," the President of the United States said, his voice steady. "We've beaten back the Velvorax's best, and we've proven that we will not bend to their will. But we cannot rest now. We have to take the fight to them, and we have to do it together." It was a message that resonated with the people, who began to mobilize like never before. Earth's military forces, now strengthened by an unbreakable resolve, moved to the final phase of their counteroffensive. The Velvorax fortress was their target, and they would stop at nothing to destroy it. In space, the Velvorax were in full retreat, though not without a fight. Admiral Xandor, still on the flagship, seethed with fury. His once great fleet was in disarray. He had underestimated humanity, and now it was threatening to unravel everything. But he was not one to give up so easily. "We have one final option," Xandor said, turning to his officers. "The last of our military forces are in the fortress on the moon. They have enough firepower to wipe out entire cities, and we can use it to strike back at Earth." His officers, though worn and battered, stood tall. "Yes, Admiral," one of them replied, "but the humans are not the same as the other races we've defeated. They're more resourceful than we thought. Their unity—" "It's incredible!" Xandor's expression hardened. "Then we will show them the true power of the Velvorax. We will make them pay for their defiance." The plan was set in motion. The Velvorax had activated their final weapon, a fleet of super-powered drones designed to defend their fortress and destroy any human ships that came too close. Xandor watched as the drones powered up, their sleek, menacing forms rising from the moon's surface. These were not ordinary fighters. They were crafted with the last of the Velvorax's advanced technology. But as Xandor prepared for the final clash, he could not shake the feeling that something was different. The humans were not like any other species he had conquered. They were unpredictable, passionate, and above all, they fought for each other. And that was a power the Velvorax had never truly understood. Back on Earth, General Kane and Dr. Hayes were overseeing the final stages of their plan. The human fleet had gathered, ready to launch a full-scale assault on the Velvorax fortress. There was no turning back now. The battle would determine the fate of Earth. Dr. Hayes looked up from her console, her face tense. "General, we've made the final calculations. The Velvorax drones are being deployed. If they get too close to the fortress, they'll have enough firepower to destroy our ships in seconds." "We've got one shot," Kane replied. "We need to keep them off balance long enough to get to the fortress. We'll use the EMP satellites to disable the drones, then launch the final strike." The plan was risky. The EMP satellites had already been used once, but they were Earth's best chance at disabling the Velvorax's advanced technology again. It was their final card to play, and it was all or nothing. As the human fleet launched toward the moon, the tension in space was palpable. Every ship moved in perfect synchronization, working together as one. This wasn't just about military power anymore. It was about the spirit of humanity itself. The Velvorax drones launched into space, their dark silhouettes cutting across the void. They moved quickly, forming a shield around the fortress. Xandor's voice echoed over the comms. "Destroy them all! Leave nothing alive!" But as the drones closed in, something unexpected happened. Earth's fleet released a new wave of weapons, sophisticated anti-drone missiles, designed to overwhelm the Velvorax technology. The drones tried to fight back, firing their powerful weapons, but they were no match for Earth's sheer numbers and ingenuity. One by one, the drones fell, their systems disabled or destroyed in moments. Xandor's eyes widened with disbelief. How are they doing this? Dr. Hayes' voice came through the comms. You're outmatched, Xandor. It's over. With the drones falling one by one, the human fleet pressed on toward the fortress. The Velverax had one last chance to defend themselves, but Earth's forces were closing in fast. The EMP satellites were now in position, and the final strike was imminent. General Kane issued the command to launch the EMP pulse. In seconds, the entire Velverax fortress was enveloped in a wave of electromagnetic energy. The fortress, once an impenetrable stronghold, went dark. All systems were disabled. The Velverax had lost their last line of defense. We did it, Kane muttered to himself, a rare smile crossing his face. We've won. Back on Earth, the world erupted in celebration. News stations flashed images of the victorious human fleet, and people poured into the streets cheering. Humanity had done the impossible. They had driven back an enemy that was once considered unbeatable. They had united in a way that no one had ever thought possible, and they had emerged victorious. But even as humanity celebrated, General Kane knew that this was only the beginning. The war was over, but the fight for Earth's future had just begun, and humanity had proven beyond a doubt that they would never give up, never back down, and never be defeated. With the Velverax defeated and Earth's future secured, humanity looked toward the stars ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. One thing was clear. Humanity had proven that, no matter the odds, they would rise to meet any challenge and fight for their survival. And the galaxy would never forget the day when humanity stood up to the greatest empire the universe had ever known and sent it to the ground.
The Velverax Empire was the most powerful force in the galaxy. For centuries, they had expanded their rule to countless planets, crushing civilizations that dared to resist them. Their ships were massive, their weapons destructive, and their army was unmatched. No one had ever stood against them for long. They had conquered entire worlds in the blink of an eye, and no one expected Earth to be any different. The Velverax had long been observing Earth from a distance, studying its inhabitants and resources. The humans were primitive compared to the rest of the galaxy, but they had something that caught the attention of the Velverax: potential. The Earth was rich in resources, and the Velverax needed those resources to fuel their ever-growing empire. Their scouts had reported that Earth was far from a powerful civilization, but they had developed some impressive technology. This made the Velverax eager to conquer the planet before it could become a threat. They had already defeated dozens of other civilizations far more advanced than humanity. To them, Earth was nothing more than another easy target. The Velverax fleet was ready, and they would stop at nothing to bring Earth to heel. A fleet of 100 warships was dispatched to Earth. These ships were enormous, each equipped with laser cannons, plasma bombs, and shielding technology that made them nearly invincible. The fleet was led by Admiral Xandor, a ruthless and experienced leader who had crushed more worlds than he could count. His confidence in the success of the mission was absolute. As the fleet traveled through the stars, Xandor stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic map of Earth. "Prepare to engage," Xandor ordered. "In a few hours we will bring Earth to its knees." The crew of the fleet cheered, confident in their victory. They knew that it would be just another easy conquest. But there was one thing they did not know. Humanity was not as weak as they thought. On Earth, life was carrying on as usual. People went about their daily lives, working, studying, and living. They had no idea that an unstoppable fleet was heading their way, preparing to invade their home. Governments around the world were unaware of the impending threat. But there were a few who had been preparing for this moment for years, though they had never expected it to come so soon. For decades, a secret group of scientists, engineers, and military leaders had been working in the shadows, developing advanced technology in case of an alien invasion. They knew that Earth's technology was far behind that of the Velverax. But they had one thing the invaders did not: the ability to adapt. Dr. Sophia Hayes, one of Earth's leading scientists, had spent years studying alien technology and reverse engineering it. She was one of the few people on Earth who knew the truth, that the Velverax Empire was real and that Earth was not prepared to defend itself. For years she had tried to warn the world's leaders, but they had dismissed her warnings as paranoia. When the Velverax fleet arrived, Dr. Hayes knew it was too late to rely on diplomacy or hope for help from other worlds. The humans would have to fight alone. She had already laid the groundwork, however. Earth had a secret weapon, one that had been kept hidden from the public, a series of satellites capable of launching an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, which could disable the alien fleet's technology. But that was not all. The human military had also been working on a new type of spacecraft designed to defend Earth. At the highest levels of government, a meeting was held in secret to discuss the arrival of the Velverax fleet. The leaders of the world's most powerful nations gathered in a secure underground facility where they were briefed on the situation. General Marcus Kane, a decorated military officer with decades of experience, stood at the front of the room, speaking to the group of leaders. "We don't have much time," General Kane said, his voice calm but firm. "The Velverax fleet is nearly here and we need to act fast. If we don't stop them, they will destroy us." The room fell silent. Everyone knew that General Kane was right. There was no way the world's armies could stand up to the Velverax with their current technology. But General Kane wasn't concerned about what they had now. He was concerned about what they could do with the right plan. "We have two options," Kane continued. "We can try to fight with conventional weapons, which we know will fail, or we can use the technology we've been developing in secret. We have a weapon, an EMP system that can disable the fleet's ships, but we need to act quickly or it will be too late." Dr. Hayes, who had been sitting at the back of the room, stood up. She was a tall woman in her early 40s with sharp eyes and a determined look on her face. She had been working alongside Kane for years, developing the EMP technology. "We also have a fleet of new warships built from salvaged alien tech," Dr. Hayes said. "They're not as advanced as the Velverax ships, but they'll give us a fighting chance. If we can launch a coordinated strike and use the EMP system to disable their fleet, we might be able to turn the tide." The world leaders exchanged uneasy glances. The plan was risky, but it was their only hope. They had no choice but to trust Kane and Hayes. "We'll do it," one of the leaders said, breaking the silence. "We'll put everything we have into this. For Earth." As the decision was made, a sense of determination filled the room. The leaders of Earth knew that they were facing an enemy far stronger than anything they had ever encountered. But they also knew that humanity had one thing the Velverax could never take away: their will to survive. As the Velverax fleet drew closer, Earth's military forces began to mobilize. The EMP satellites were activated, and the new warships were launched into space ready to defend their home. The atmosphere on Earth was tense. People knew something was happening, but they had no idea how close they were to an invasion. It was a waiting game now, one that would determine whether humanity would survive or fall to the might of the Velverax. Up in space, Admiral Zandor watched as Earth came into view. His fleet was ready. They would strike in mere hours and the planet would be theirs. Nothing would stop them, or so he thought. What the Velverax didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this day, and it wasn't going to go down without a fight. The countdown had begun, and the storm was about to hit. The next few hours would change everything. In just a matter of hours, the fate of Earth would be decided. The Velverax were confident in their victory, but they had underestimated one thing: the strength of the human spirit. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the invaders that they were not as helpless as they appeared. The storm was coming, and the Velverax would soon learn that there was one thing that humans could always count on. When pushed to the edge, they would rise. This was just the beginning. The war was far from over, and the real fight was yet to come.
The war for Earth had been long and arduous, but the victory was now in sight. The Velverax, once a terrifying empire that seemed unstoppable, had been brought to its knees. Their fleet was shattered, their most powerful weapons destroyed, and their pride broken. Yet despite all of their losses, Admiral Zandor knew that the battle was far from over. The Velverax may have been defeated on Earth, but they still had a powerful weapon, one that could threaten humanity again: their homeworld. Far from the war-torn skies of Earth, in the cold and distant corners of the galaxy, the Velverax homeworld stood strong. Its advanced technologies, hidden deep in the heart of their empire, remained untouched. It was a place of unimaginable power, and Xandor knew that, if they could somehow regroup and rebuild, they could still be a serious threat to Earth's survival. As the remnants of the Velvorax fleet scattered, Xandor began to formulate a new plan. He knew that Earth's forces would not stop until they had completely neutralized the Velvorax threat. He had seen how humanity fought, not just with weapons, but with an unyielding spirit. The war had opened his eyes to something that the Velvorax had failed to understand. Humans could adapt, they could learn, and they would never give up. But Xandor had one final move. The Velvorax were not defeated yet. The Velvorax homeworld, a fortress protected by layers of advanced defenses, held a weapon more powerful than anything humanity had encountered. It was a weapon that could wipe out entire planets, and it was humanity's last obstacle to peace. Back on Earth, General Marcus Kane and Dr. Sophia Hayes stood in the command center, analyzing the data from the battlefield. Earth had won, but they could not afford to let their guard down. They had seen the enemy regroup, and Kane knew that the Velvorax would come for revenge. "They're going to try something," Kane said, his voice grave as he stared at the screen showing the wreckage of the Velvorax fleet. "Xandor won't let this go. If they have any strength left, they'll make one last push." Dr. Hayes stood next to him, her eyes focused on the data. "They've retreated to their homeworld. They'll regroup, they'll rebuild. They still have one last weapon. If they use it, Earth will be in danger again." Kane's jaw clenched. "I know. We need to go after them before they can launch it. If we don't act now, everything we've fought for will be at risk." But even as the humans planned their next move, another challenge awaited them. The Velvorax had a secret weapon buried deep in their homeworld, a device capable of destroying entire planets. This weapon had been kept hidden for centuries, and it had only ever been used once, long before Earth had even discovered the stars. The weapon was so powerful that even the Velvorax leaders feared its potential. "We need to destroy that weapon," Kane said. "We can't let it fall into their hands. If the Velvorax use it against Earth, it will be the end of us." Dr. Hayes nodded. "But their homeworld is nearly impossible to penetrate. The defenses are too strong. No one has ever dared to attack it." "We'll do what we have to do," Kane replied, determination in his voice. "Humanity doesn't back down. Not now. Not ever." The decision was made. Earth's fleet, now fully recovered and prepared for the final stage of the war, began to assemble. It was a daunting mission. The Velvorax homeworld, surrounded by powerful defense systems, would not be easy to breach. Earth's forces would need to infiltrate the planet's atmosphere, disable its defenses, and destroy the weapon before the Velvorax could use it. As the fleet began to assemble in orbit around Earth, a wave of nervous anticipation swept over the crews. This was it, the last battle. If they succeeded, humanity would be free. If they failed, Earth would be lost forever. General Kane stood at the front of the command room, the weight of the mission heavy on his shoulders. "This is the moment. We've come a long way, but the war isn't truly over until we neutralize that weapon. We've proven that humanity can rise against impossible odds. We can win this." Dr. Hayes walked up beside him, her voice soft but resolute. "We've come so far. We know what we're fighting for. We've seen what happens when we stand together. And we will stand together, no matter what." As Earth's fleet made its way toward the Velvorax homeworld, Xandor's forces were already preparing for the final strike. The last of the Velvorax ships, their damaged hulls now repaired, were gathering near the planet. Xandor, still determined to regain control, had one final card to play. "Prepare the weapon," Xandor ordered. His voice was cold, filled with the bitter taste of vengeance. "We will show the humans that they cannot defeat the Velvorax. Earth will fall, and the galaxy will know that we are still a force to be reckoned with." The weapon was hidden deep beneath the surface of the Velvorax homeworld, protected by layers of shields and advanced technologies. It had the power to destroy entire planets with a single strike, and Xandor intended to use it. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Velvorax homeworld's atmosphere. Their ships now reinforced with the technology they had adapted from. Their previous encounters began to descend into the planet's atmosphere. The air crackled with tension as they navigated through thick clouds, past heavy artillery, and through an advanced defense grid that had never been penetrated before. "Steady," Kane said through the comms. "This is it. Stay sharp. We can't let them stop us now." As the fleet approached the surface, the Velvorax defense systems sprang to life. Massive cannons fired on Earth's ships, sending explosions rippling through space. But humanity's forces were ready. Their ships dodged and weaved, using every maneuver they had learned in the heat of battle. The Velvorax had underestimated them once again. "We're breaking through!" Dr. Hayes shouted, watching the screens with intensity. "The shields are failing. We have a clear path." But even as Earth's ships pushed through, Xandor was not backing down. "Activate the planetary weapon," he ordered. "If we cannot destroy them in space, we will crush them on the surface." As the human forces descended into the heart of the Velvorax homeworld, Xandor prepared to launch the ultimate weapon. The countdown began, and Earth's forces raced to the planet's core, where the weapon was hidden. If they could reach it in time, they might still be able to disable it. But time was running out. Kane and his team broke through the final layers of the planet's defenses, landing at the core of the weapon's facility. The enormous doors opened, revealing the massive glowing power source that could destroy Earth with a single blow. "This is it," Kane said, his voice calm but filled with urgency. "We can't afford any mistakes." As they approached the control center, Xandor's voice crackled through the comms. "You are too late. The weapon will fire, and your precious planet will be destroyed." But Kane wasn't listening. With a final push, Earth's team reached the power core. Dr. Hayes worked quickly, hacking into the system, her hands flying across the keyboard. "I've almost got it. We need a few more seconds." Seconds that felt like hours. Finally, the countdown stopped. The weapon was disabled. Earth's forces had succeeded. Xandor's voice was filled with fury and disbelief. "No, this cannot be happening. We will rise again. The Velvorax will never be defeated." But the truth was undeniable. The Velvorax had been defeated, and Earth had emerged victorious. The final strike had been delivered. The Velvorax, once the greatest empire in the galaxy, were no more. The weapon was destroyed, and the threat to Earth was finally over. Back on Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. The people of Earth, once divided, now stood united, having faced down the most powerful empire the universe had ever known. They had proven once and for all that no matter the odds, no matter the power of their enemies, humanity would always rise. Humanity had saved itself, and in doing so, had shown the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with. Earth was free, and its future was bright. As General Kane stood with Dr. Hayes, looking out at the peaceful skies of Earth, he knew one thing for certain: humanity had won. And they would never forget the strength they had shown together in the face of the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known.